Detective Emmett Harding of 27 Linden Avenue was well known for his genius mind. In fact, he'd cracked several cases that even Scotland Yard had given up on. He had no lack of mysteries to keep him occupied, nor money to keep him comfortable. Yes, it was safe to say that Detective Harding was doing quite well in his line of business. He never once met a case that baffled him. That is, until he met this one. It was the day before Christmas when it all began. The holiday spirit was in the air, and passers-by seemed to walk with springs in their steps. Some of the more well-to-do households had decorated their homes with garlands and holly, while cries of Merry Christmas filled the streets. Such was the scene through which Detective Harding and his friend and colleague, Walter Bennett, strolled that afternoon. They had been out all morning and were now returning to their office with another case successfully solved.
Well, Walter, I suppose all we have left to do is to put it on file.
Paper's work sounds like a delightful way to spend this afternoon. We've been so busy lately.
Yes, 3 cases in 1 week. Must be a record.
Emmett, I still wish you wouldn't have charged that woman as much money as you did. Her husband is out of work, you know, and they have 4 children.
Oh, it's none of my concern how many children they have. I charge a fair price. I'm not going to risk my life and reputation for free, you know.
I know, but it just doesn't seem right to take what little money they had.
We cleared her name, didn't we? That's our job. We're supposed to get paid. How else do you expect us to make a living?
I'm just glad it's over. No one wants to spend the holidays hunting for a murderer.
Perhaps you wouldn't.
Come now. It is Christmas Eve, after all.
Ugh, I don't much care for Christmas. I mean, why on earth do people go around giving each other gifts anyway? They haven't asked for it, and surely they don't deserve it.
That's why it's a gift, Emmett. You don't have to deserve it. You only have to receive it.
Well, I, for one, won't be celebrating Christmas. And I certainly won't be receiving any gifts.
Won't you at least attend church with me tonight?
Every year you ask me, and every year I have the same answer.
Please, Emmett, just once.
Sorry, Walter. I don't see the point of a religion in which a God who has everything decides to give it all away. It's unrealistic, unintelligent, and terribly unbusinesslike.
Walter shook his head but said no more. Their discussions always seemed to end like this, especially lately. Detective Harding appeared content with the silence, so they continued on in that fashion until they'd reached Linden Avenue. Upon arriving inside the entryway, the men removed their long coats, preparing for a much more restful afternoon than the morning had been. But no sooner had they ascended the stairs to the office than their secretary approached them.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Harding.
Hello, Miss Gardner.
Oh, Mr. Harding, sir, may I ask you something?
Yes, what is it?
Well, you see, tomorrow is Christmas Day, and...
I am well aware of what day it is, Miss Gardner. And I suppose you'll be wanting the day off.
Yes, sir, if it's no trouble to you.
No, that never stopped anyone before. Very well, but you must stay and finish your work tonight.
Oh, but, sir, my grandmother will be waiting for me at home tonight. She's ill, you see, and...
Ill? I could have sworn she was just ill last month.
Oh, come now. Emmett, just give the poor girl the night off.
No, I need to remain firm. This is why I am the senior partner, Walter. You're too soft on everyone.
Detective Harding turned again to his desk and rummaged around for a moment. All at once, his sharp eyes caught something among the usual clutter of papers and writing utensils.
Hello? What is this?
Oh, I nearly forgot. A man was here to see you a little while ago. He couldn't stay, but he left that note for you.
A note, eh? Well, let's see what it is.
The detective picked up the scrap of paper and unfolded it. Walter came to look over his shoulder as he read the note aloud.
Where'er we go, where'er our lot, gold and silver matter not. Neither tarry nor delay to seek the path to find the way.
What on earth could that mean?
I'm not sure. Miss Gardner, did you see what this man looked like?
I don't really recall much. He didn't stay very long. He didn't even take off his hat or coat.
Well, Walter, it would seem we have another case on our hands.
Another case? We've only nearly finished the last one.
Yes, isn't it grand? Now, let's see about this note.
Detective Harding studied the piece of paper for a long moment, turning it over in his hands and holding it up to the light.
This paper has been sitting unused for a while, but it's of extremely good quality. In fact, it's very much like the paper we use at our office. However, the ink is quite different in variety, much cheaper and very thin too.
Oh, right. I see it now.
The words on the note itself are much harder to decipher. It would seem by the second line, we're dealing with something more valuable than gold. But what would a poor man like this have that's more valuable than gold? Did you notice anything else about him?
Only that he took a cab when he left. I watched him through the window.
Come on then, Walter. Perhaps the cabbie is still waiting around somewhere.
Stuffing the note into his pocket, Detective Harding turned swiftly on his heel and headed for the door. Walter stared after him in confusion.
You aren't really going to try and find him, are you?
And why not? Besides, this is much better than sitting around in an office.
Well, actually, I was looking forward to...
No time for idle chatter, Walter. We may even solve this case today.
With those words, the detective strode purposefully out of the room. Looking a bit less enthused, Walter heaved a sigh and followed. The two men quickly pulled on their coats at the bottom of the stairs, then ventured out into the frigid air once more. Only one cab was in sight when they stepped outside, but it seemed to be sitting idle for the moment. The horse was eating contentedly out of a feed sack, while its master lounged atop the carriage. Detective Harding walked right up to the cab, rapping sharply on the side to get the cabbie's attention.
What? Oh, hello there. Merry Christmas, gents. Would you like a ride?
That depends. Did you give another man a ride from this address?
Aye. Not an hour ago. But what's it to you?
Perfect. Take us there. And be quick about it.
The detective leaped inside, followed by Walter, who nodded politely to the cabbie. In another moment, they were off down the streets, the horse moving as though he were eager to get back to his meager supper. They traveled mostly in silence, Detective Harding staring out the window in deep thought. Walter would have preferred to have a conversation, but he knew better than to interrupt his friend when they had a case to solve. At last, the detective's eyes lit up, and he suddenly began to rummage around the inside of the cab.
Mitt, what on earth are you doing?
I'm searching for clues. Our mystery man may have left something of his in this cab.
All right, you are. Is there anything I can do to help?
Yes, if you would be so good as to switch places with me. I must search the seat where you are.
Right, you are.
Soon after the two men had switched places, Detective Harding suddenly gave a cry of triumph, holding up something in his hand. It was two small pieces of rope, knotted together in the middle.
Yeah, a knot.
A rolling hitch, to be more precise. It appears our mystery man is some maritime experience.
And how is it you know so much about knots?
Well, it's quite paltry, really. My brother wanted to be a sailor when he was young. He was always tying knots.
I didn't know you had a brother.
No, I suppose you didn't.
So if our man is a sailor, what do you suppose the note meant?
I'm not sure. It must fit together somehow, but we don't have all the pieces yet.
They fell into silence once more until the cab finally slowed to a stop. Detective Harding and Walter climbed out, scanning the area. The houses were much less grand in this part of the city, and the people who walked the streets were dressed much more plainly.
Well, this is where you got out. If you want more information, you might want to try asking those carolers over there.
The cabbie gestured to a small group of children who were standing on a nearby street corner, singing Christmas hymns.
Yes, that's exactly what I'll do. Oh, and wait for us here, will you? We might need you before the night is over.
Aye, sir. I'd be glad to, but, well, do you think you could give me a wee tip for me trouble? Me wife and children be wanting their Christmas dinner, and I don't got the tuppence to spare.
I'm sorry, my good man, but I don't give tips. Your job was to bring us here, and I'll pay you for that, and not a cent more.
Detective Harding pulled a few coins from his pocket and placed them into the cabbie's hand.
Oh, give the man his tip, Emmett. Heaven knows you got plenty more coins in that pocket of yours.
Well, if you're feeling so charitable, Walter, why don't you give him a tip?
I would, but only I've got a few farthings left.
Come on, Walter. We have work to do.
The detective turned away, but Walter paused to fish the farthings out of his pocket, handing them to the cabbie.
Thank you, sir. Much obliged. I'll be waiting for you when you come back.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my friend.
Oh, I don't take it to heart. But he don't seem to care for much folks, does he?
I suppose you could say that. Well, I should go. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Walter hurried away, catching up with Detective Harding just as he reached the group of carolers.
Excuse me, children. I'd like to have a word with you.
Would you like to sing with us, mister?
No, I want to ask you a few questions. Did you see a man get out of a cab on this corner a few hours ago?
Oh, yes, he was very nice. He stopped to sing with us.
I'm sure he did. Did you notice anything else about him? What he was wearing, maybe?
No, mister, but he did give us a halfpence for our singing.
Aha! What do you say to that, Emmett? Even the sailors give out their money more readily than you do.
Oh, be quiet, Walter. Did you see where this man went?
Yes, he went into that house over there. He and his wife just moved here a few days ago.
Oh, so we've found his home, haven't we? Come on, Walter.
Wait, mister, won't you sing with us?
No, sorry, children. I don't sing.
Oh, but these are Christmas songs. Everybody sings Christmas songs.
Well, I don't.
Why not? Don't you like Christmas?
As a matter of fact, I do not. It's quite a ridiculous notion, if you ask me. All this singing and giving gifts and going to church.
But Christmas is about Jesus, and that's the best part of all.
Well, you're out of luck, I'm afraid. I don't much care for Jesus either.
I bet you would if you knew what he did for you.
Children, I'm really in a hurry.
I'm gonna pray for you, mister.
What? No, you don't need to do that. I'm quite all right, thank you.
I'm gonna pray for you too, mister. Me too.
All right, I'm leaving now. Thank you for the information. Goodbye.
Bye, mister, and Merry Christmas. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Detective Harding and Walter headed in silence towards the house the carolers had pointed out. It was small and shabby, and a few of the windows had been boarded up. As soon as they had reached the door, Detective Harding knocked sharply on it. After a few moments, the door swung open to reveal a young woman wearing an apron and covered in flour.
Oh, hello. Merry Christmas. I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting visitors today.
It's quite all right, ma'am. We're here on a matter of business.
Well, do come in. I'm Mary Ann, by the way.
The woman led them into a tiny sitting room with a crackling fire on the hearth. The two men seated themselves on a set of wooden chairs, catching a whiff of the bread baking in the kitchen. The woman brushed her flour-covered hands on her apron and sat down on the rocking chair near the fire.
Now then, what can I do for you gentlemen?
Well, we've come about your husband. I'm a private investigator, and it seems he came to my office while I was out.
Oh, you must be Emmett Harding. My husband told me he'd pay you a visit.
Did he now? I don't suppose he told you why he wanted to see me?
I think it would be best if he told you that himself. He should be home soon if you care to wait around till then.
I believe we will, thank you. I understand your husband is a seaman?
Why, yes, he was a sailor for 7 years, but now he's taken a job at the church.
I'll wager that's taken quite a toll on your pocketbooks. You're not used to such a meager living, are you, madam?
No, I suppose not. It's true, we were better off when my husband worked at sea, but he wanted to do something better with his life. He wanted to be able to serve the Lord and his fellow neighbors.
I didn't suppose your husband would be the new custodian on the church at Hartford Street.
That's the very church. Do you attend there?
I do indeed.
Do you plan on going to the service tonight?
Yes, and tomorrow's service as well. Emmett here is quite a lonesome fellow, and he hasn't got any plans for the holidays.
No plans for Christmas? You ought to celebrate with us then. We've only just moved here, so we haven't many friends.
No, I couldn't possibly impose.
Nonsense. My husband and I would be glad to have guests. You can attend church with us tonight, and then come back here for Christmas Eve dinner.
I really don't want to impose.
Oh, come on, Emmett. Just say yes already.
Detective Harding felt his resolve weakening from the woman's generosity. To receive such a kind offer, and from a stranger, too. His mind told him to refuse, but something deep inside him wanted to say yes. His eyes roamed around the room in thought, moving from one piece of furniture to another. All at once, his gaze landed on a shelf on the wall, upon which sat a thick, aging book. Immediately, his face froze, and all of his inner turmoil ceased. He rose quickly to his feet.
I should have known. The poem, the sailor's not like the generosity of the careless. How could I have been so blind?
What are you talking about?
I think it's time we take our leave. Come on, Walter.
Wait, please don't go.
What about our mystery man, Emmett? Don't you want to find who he is?
I know who he is.
You do?
Please, Detective Harding, at least speak to Charlie first.
No, I've wasted enough time already. Walter, let's go.
With those words, Detective Harding strode out of the room, Walter following bewilderingly behind him. As soon as he was out of the house, the detective headed down the street at a brisk pace.
Emmett, where are you going? The cobby's waiting for us.
You go along without me. I think I'd rather walk home.
Walter glanced up at the snowflakes that had started to fall, then hurried to catch up with his friend. They walked along on the slippery cobblestone towards a bridge that loomed in the distance.
Emmett, will you please explain yourself? Who on earth is Charlie?
His full name is Charles Harding. He's my brother.
Your brother?
Yes, Okay, so Charlie and I got into the private investigating business as colleagues, you see. I was the brains of the partnership and he was the brawn. We started off with hardly a penny to our names, but over time our reputation began to grow. Together we cracked some of the toughest cases that ever come against.
Oh, I didn't know any of this. Why, I didn't even know you had a brother until today.
Well, yes, I don't speak of him much these days. Charlie always did have a soft heart. Too soft for his own good. He believed in Jesus, like you. I suppose that's one of the reasons we didn't get along very well.
So what happened between you two?
Well, I guess you could say we had a falling out. 7 years ago, on Christmas Eve it was, Charlie was out on errands when an old woman came in and poured out a story about her missing husband. Trouble was, she hadn't anything to pay us with, or so she told me. I knew accepting her case without charge would only bring more freeloaders to our doorstep, so I turned her away. When Charlie came back and heard the story, he was furious and started to scold me because I was being so frugal. I stood my ground, knowing that I had simply made a wise business move. We began to get more and more heated. We both said things we'd later regret. It was as though all our differences over the years came pouring out all at once. In a fit of anger, I told him to go out and help the old woman himself if he wanted to. So Charlie snatched up his coat and gave me one last look of disappointment and headed out into the night.
They'd reached the bridge by this point, and Detective Harding placed his elbows on the stone wall, looking out over the half-frozen river.
After he left, the snow came down thick, erasing all traces of Charlie's footsteps. He never returned that evening, or any days following. Finally, I was forced to assume that he had perished in the cold that night. His act of folly led to his very demise.
But he's not dead.
Apparently, no.
What is this all about, Emmett? Surely you can forgive each other after all these years.
It has nothing to do with forgiveness. I made my peace with Charlie a long time ago, but he's so set in his ways as I am in mine. We never thought the same about anything back then, and I suspect it would be the same way now.
But you don't know that.
I do know it. I know it because I know him. Here I am, living a successful life, and there he is with barely a roof over his head. He was always stopping to help any poor soul that he came across, as though time and money were things to be thrown about.
Now that's hardly fair judgment. Your brother sounds quite noble, actually.
Noble? He's nothing short of foolish, Walter. To take his hard-earned living and waste it on those who cannot help themselves?
Emmett, I just can't believe you. You're wealthy and prosperous, yet you've driven every speck of human kindness out of your life. You bury yourself in your work, and you hoard your time and your possessions and money as they were your own prized possessions.
Because they are. There are only a certain amount of years a man can live, or gold he can obtain. Why squander it?
Why keep it for yourself? Why search for happiness in something so limited?
And I suppose you and Charlie find happiness in giving it all away?
No, Emmett. My happiness is found in Christ, who gave himself for me. When I turned to him for salvation, my love for material things paled in comparison to the satisfaction he gives. I share with others because of my joy, not to somehow earn it.
Detective Harding turned away from Walter in silence, his face as hard and cold as the stones beneath their feet.
Emmett, listen to me. You may have wealth and prosperity now, but that's not going to matter someday. The Bible puts it this way: for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and yet lose his own soul? Jesus came to earth to die for your sins. That's why we celebrate Christmas. He gave himself as a gift so that we may have eternal life. Don't lose your soul over a pile of money, Emmett. It's not going to last. And when it's all stripped away, you'll have nothing left.
Stop, Walter. I don't want to hear any more of this.
All right, then. All right. I'm going home. I'll see you after the holidays, Emmett.
Quietly, Walter drew himself up and began to walk away. The detective remained rigid for a few moments, but at last he slowly turned. The coldness of his expression melted away as he watched his last friend in the world disappear into the falling snow. And Detective Harding was left alone on the bridge.
Well, if he wants to go, he can. He'll see how it works out for him.
Feeling a sudden chill come over him, the detective put his hands into the pocket of his overcoat. His right hand closed over a scrap of paper, and he pulled it out with a frown.
Where'er you go, where'er a lot, gold and silver matter not. Neither tarry nor delay, to seek the path, to find the way. Gold and silver matter not, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? To seek the path to find the way.
All at once, the words suddenly became clear to Detective Harding. They spoke of the years he'd labored to earn his wealth, all of the toil and effort he'd put into his work. But what had he been working towards? What would he have to show at the end of his life except a useless pile of money? It was all emptiness, he realized. He'd spent his life chasing emptiness, while the path to joy had been right in front of him the whole time. After a long moment, Detective Harding turned again to look out over the river, his brow furrowed in thought as he spoke aloud.
God, I suppose I've tarried long enough, haven't I? I couldn't make sense of it. All this talk of you giving your son for me. I mean, why on earth would you do that? I didn't ask for it, and certainly I don't deserve it. But I guess that's why you call it a gift. Well, I'm receiving that gift right now, God. I want you to come into my life. And I turn from my works, and I need you to save my soul.
In that moment, an overwhelming joy swept over Detective Harding. He turned from the bridge, looking about him in wonder. Everything was exactly the same as it had always been, but to him, it was also different. Never had a snowstorm looked so beautiful. Never had a darkening sky seemed so bright. But then, from out of the fog and snow, a man stepped onto the bridge. His long overcoat had been thrown carelessly over his shoulders, and he seemed to have forgotten his hat. Detective Harding sucked in a sharp breath as he recognized the man. 7 years it had been, but in that moment, it was as though those years had never gone by.
Charlie!
Hello, Emmett. Mariana told me you'd been to the house. I thought perhaps I could catch up to you.
You came to my office. You wrote me a note.
Yes. I'm sorry about that, Emmett. I didn't know what to say to you, and when I heard you were out, well, I suppose I was too scared to talk to you myself.
Charlie, I've been so wrong. I see that now.
You do?
Yes, I didn't understand the true spirit of Christmas, I suppose. I didn't realize what a priceless gift God was offering me.
What made you change your mind?
Well, my friend Walter has been trying to reach me for quite some time now, but it was your note, Charlie, that finally got my attention.
Do you mean that my note actually worked?
Well, I can't say much for your poetic ability. I understand what you meant. I didn't understand what it meant at first, but God brought it back to me just when I needed it. I'm sorry, Charlie, for everything. I was so selfish and greedy and...
All at once, Charlie strode forward and wrapped Detective Harding in a tight embrace, his overcoat falling unheeded to the snow-covered ground.
It's all right, Emmett. I forgive you.
The detective pulled away, his eyes glinting with tears.
Thank you, Charlie. You know, I feel different somehow. I've been happy before, but this isn't happiness. It's
Joy?
yes, joy. It's like I could sing at the top of my lungs or do a million things and never get tired of doing them. Have you ever felt that feeling before?
As a matter of fact, I have.
I've got to do something, Charlie. I want to do something for somebody.
At that moment, a cab emerged from the snow and pulled to a stop next to the two men.
Hello, gents. You still needing a ride?
Oh, what perfect timing. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, sir. You're sure in a fine mood.
And why shouldn't I be? It's a beautiful evening.
The cabbie glanced around at the icy roads and wet snow, his eyebrows raised.
Yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir. Now, where are you headed off to?
The detective turned to his brother with excitement gleaming in his eyes.
I want to do something for Christmas, Charlie. Something special. Will you help me?
But I'm to meet Mariana at the church for the Christmas Eve service.
Then I'll come with you. Can we make a stop on the way?
Certainly, but we'll have to hurry.
Perfect. Cabby, to Linden Avenue, please. And thank you kindly for your help.
Well, sure got perky all of a sudden.
The two men climbed into the cab and they were off down the road.
Oh, I haven't been this excited in years, Charlie. I can't wait for you to meet Walter. He'll be at the service tonight. You'll love him.
In no time, they arrived at the detective's office, and he jumped out hastily and headed inside.
Oh, Miss Gardner. Miss Gardner, are you still there?
After a moment, the secretary appeared at the top of the stairs, her face alarmed.
Yes, sir. Is something the matter?
Oh, no, just the opposite, actually. You're free to go tonight, Miss Gardner, and you won't have to worry about your grandmother anymore. I'm going to raise your salary.
Sir, thank you ever so much. I'm deeply grateful.
No, I'm the grateful one, Miss Gardner. Now, I must be off, but won't you join us for church later?
I might do that, sir. Goodbye now.
Goodbye, and Merry Christmas.
Pulling his coat tightly around him again, Detective Harding headed back out onto the street and climbed into the cab.
Thank you, cabby. Now, would you be so good as to take us to the church on Hartford Street?
Yes, sir. Right away.
All right. I was just delivering an overdue Christmas gift, Charlie, so don't worry about it.
Before long, the cab pulled to a stop in front of a tall church building, and the two passengers climbed out.
Here you are, sir. This is the church you've been wanting, ain't it?
It is indeed, my good man. Now, I've something to give you for your service.
The detective dug into his pocket and pulled out a few banknotes, placing them into the cabbie's gloved hand.
There you are. That ought to cover a Christmas meal for your family, eh?
Sir, you must be joking. I can't take this.
You can and you will. Now, go on home to your family and perhaps you'd like to bring them back here for service?
Of course, sir. And thank you.
You're welcome and Merry Christmas.
Still looking quite incredulous, the cabbie turned away, leaving the two brothers on the church steps.
Well, shall we go in?
Right behind you, Charlie.
Charlie headed up the steps and into the building, Detective Harding following at his heels. The service had just started, and they could hear the sounds of children's voices singing. As they entered the sanctuary, the detective saw that the same carolers from before were now singing for the congregation. Charlie slipped into a pew next to his wife and motioned for Detective Harding to follow. But just as the detective was about to do so, he noticed a familiar face across the aisle and moved in that direction.
Oh, hello, Walter.
Walter's face lengthened in surprise when he saw Detective Harding.
Emmett, what are you doing here?
It's the most wonderful thing, Walter. You'll never believe it.
Never believe what?
Okay, so you know how you said you gave gifts because of that joy you had?
Yes?
Well, I think I've found that joy, Walter. It's amazing. I've never felt happier in my life.
Slowly, Walter grinned and clapped his friend on the back.
You don't know how long I've prayed for this, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you, Walter.
Seating himself in the pew next to his friend, Detective Harding turned towards the front of the church, his mind wandering back over all that had happened. He'd begun the day like any other, as a well-to-do, industrious private investigator. No case could perplex him, no criminal could frighten him. His only care in the world had been to preserve as much of his wealth as possible, and his only confidence had been in his own abilities and achievements. And now here he was, Detective Emmett Harding of 27 Linden Avenue, sitting in a church pew of his own free will, a few pounds poorer, but 1,000 times happier than he'd ever been. At that moment, one of the carolers looked up from the front of the church, and her face lit up with a grin when she spotted Detective Harding. Smiling widely in return, the detective listened as the last strains of the chorus echoed the song in his heart.